And we're back. It is long and hard. It is episode number 13. We're back to our regular scheduled programming of being live 1 p.m. Mountain Time on Tuesdays on YouTube and releasing on Wednesdays. I know you guys have been dying for us to get back and get our shit together here. As always, I'm Thomas. Here's my co-host, Josh. What's going on, Josh?
Not too much. I'm in the house. I need to go close that door. That looks kind of silly, but yeah, back on schedule. Back onto a regular recording time because I know you guys have been waiting with bated breath for the next one, and it's lucky 13 today.
It is lucky 13. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows what could happen? Bad omen, good omen, who knows? Maybe you'll never hear from Josh and I again.
Oh, you'll hear from me. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah. I don't know what's I don't know. Let's start maybe with talking about this show, and kind of one thing we want to get out there, I guess, is we're, the whole point of this was sort of documenting our journey forward, right? And obviously when we started the show, we had kind of a different goal and scope in mind, and as we started actually doing this, it's been a couple months really, right? So that's 13 weeks, give or take. So
I'm not good at math, but I think that's 3 months.
Yeah. My point being, we kind of learned a lot about this, figured out how it works, kind of learning more, or when I listen to a podcast now, I more listen a lot specifically to what they're actually doing, not just the conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But point being, we want to take a step back in terms of, instead of being all mindset, entrepreneurship, how to, and kind of lecturing you, we're kind of moving more towards, a normal podcast, which is just a couple of guys bullshitting, which is objectively what we do. So,
yeah. And I mean, most of the time, I wish people were in the room for the conversations that you and I have. So
exactly. So we
can do that at scale now.
Yeah. We are extremely smart, intelligent young men. So, it makes sense. But I mean, our focus is, I think we'll kind of tie back things into how to improve oneself here and there as we come across it, right? But the show is taking a little bit of a turn, or a little bit of a pivot from being super entrepreneurship focused, super mindset development focused. Not that that's not important, but it's more about us, our conversations. Obviously, I think our backstory, our origin story is kind of important, right? And one thing I said to you when we started doing this was, we've been through a lot together, obviously, like as business partners, as friends. And we're both very meta individuals in that we're willing to have discussions like this. And for the record, this is how Josh and I kind of talk to each other without anyone else around or listening. So my kind of thoughts on that was like, okay, maybe we can just throw a microphone on and perhaps some people will get value from it. And for my own selfish reasons, I'll get value from it too. This is very helpful to me. And then, maybe in a year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever, we can also go back and listen and see how you've developed, whoever you might be in that sentence. And, see how the journey's coming along, all that fun stuff, or realize we were just really dumb punk kids, which is sometimes the case when you look back at things you did in this life, right? So
you just got to have fun with it. I mean, I think with every single business, there is like a shift of focus as you get rolling with it, right? Like you're doing one thing and then you start seeing other opportunities, and you kind of just, for the people that are listening to this, I'm driving a car right now, but you essentially just change course, just very slightly, looking into, what do we actually enjoy doing? And the conversations that we have is what we enjoy. We don't really enjoy lecturing people and claiming to be all knowing about stuff. Cause I mean, nobody is, but
yeah, conversations no one is. Even if we were, a couple 40-year-old guys who had built 10 successful businesses, yada, yada. Would you know more? Yes. Do you know everything? No, absolutely not. Right. So, it's help the people behind us, look up to the people ahead of us, everything in between. So
try to talk to the people that are ahead of us And
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was, we're a little more egocentric at this show in that it's namely us two having conversations, but we do have some good interviews and stuff kind of in the works and brewing, and that'll be a thing coming this summer for sure. So some really exciting content that I'm excited for, and hopefully as listeners and viewers of the show, you'll get some sort of value from it.
Yeah, we may even have an in-person, little bit of a sit across from the table.
Yeah,
because that's what we were doing actually yesterday.
Yeah, we were taking a peek at some spaces and trying to find somewhere that can accommodate the in-person aspect of this show, or to allow us to have like a studio space, whatever you want to call it, right? Because part of doing this as like a webcast or whatever, it's not quite an organic conversation. In that, yet, like, if you see the video of this, the Google Hangouts alternates to whoever's talking, but I can see Josh the whole time, and I believe he can see me, even though we record on his computer, right?
I mean, fuck, it sucks seeing you all the time. But
yeah. Josh just has it zoomed in on his own camera, just closes mine. But no, so that I can at least sort of see that and get the feedback, but you sort of miss the visual feedback and body language and those sort of cues, right? Like this is still similar to a phone call where it's like, I talk, pause, you talk, pause, I talk, pause.
Yeah, I find we interrupt each other quite a bit in it. Like it's kind of difficult to get the whole flow of a conversation in this this format, I guess.
This medium. That's actually an interesting point about, one could say that just about technology in general, right? Versus in-person conversation, in-person interaction.
Are you making a deep statement here?
wee woo. But the AI overlords will be mad at me for saying that, but there's something to be said about that for sure. And
did you watch that video I sent to the group chat yesterday about the facial recognition?
Oh yeah, that was pretty interesting. I mean, it does make sense to it is an eventuality for sure. I do think most people won't like it, but I think they'll do it anyways. And, my first experience with that, and maybe you remember this, is a few years ago, Josh and I, when we were working together as a team, we wanted to do, we were kind of trying to focus on downtown condos for our market niche, if you will. And then part of that was advertising opportunities. When you go into a lot of elevators in newer buildings, they'll have like kind of an, like a digital display, right?
Yeah, I don't. There's a couple companies in the city that do them. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now, but
yeah. But either way, they have digital displays. Excuse me. And when I was talking to the rep from the advertising company at the time, she was talking about viewable impressions and yada yada and how they track that. I'm like, okay, well, like, how do you track that? And they actually have. At that time, they had face monitoring technology in those ads, so they can see when you look at that ad and whether you read it or not, right?
I'm gonna have to fucking start wearing sunglasses everywhere or something.
And this was like 3 years ago, right? So, and I think it was kind of a grotesque technology at that time where it could only tell if you were like looking at the ad versus not looking at it. Right. So in theory, if it was like a black background, you could be checking your own reflection, not reading the ad, right? So.
Well, if you know me, that's probably what I was doing. But
yeah, exactly. But no, it was really interesting, and I'd be curious to see. And it's a clip from that movie. I've never seen it before.
Minority Report, I think.
Have you seen that one?
No, it's the Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah, it's a Tom Cruise movie. I remember I only knew about it because I remember Chris D'Elia going on this rant on his show one time where he's like, "Why is his last name Anderton? No one's name is Anderton. It's Anderson." Right. But it is kind of weird that, as you walk through the scene in the movie, as you walk through this, he walks through a department store in like the year 2070 or whatever the hell it is, or 2050 or something like that. And then there's digital like billboards that talk to him, but they address him by his first name. And it's like, "Hey, John Anderton, you could use a Guinness. John Anderton, these watches are on sale," whatever. Right. So,
yeah. You know why they used Anderton is because Anderson is the Matrix.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It would have been too
you
similar
could have just picked a totally different last name. Like Smith. I don't know.
Yeah, they're similar
Mhm.
concepts, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see how well, because like ads are getting more and more tailored because I don't know, I think there's just more and more clutter in the space, and uh, advertising platforms like Facebook, Google, etc., need to provide that to the companies that are paying them millions of dollars a year, right? With
Right.
increasing costs and so on and so on, right? So
Yeah, the advertising space is so saturated with, I mean, frankly, garbage right now.
mhm,
So
mhm,
is it a way to get better advertisements out to the end clients? I mean, probably, but
mhm.
they're going about it pretty fucking creepily.
Yeah, I mean it's a fine line for sure, because in theory you would benefit from better ads in terms, like people are so afraid of ads and that they're going to like get tricked into buying something, but
Yeah.
I think most people are pretty informed consumers. Like you probably want relevant ads showing to you because there are products out there that can fulfill your needs, yada yada yada.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's like, well, it's a very double-edged sword, don't you think? Because the only way to get those specifics would be to uh, kind of have a more personalized profile out there, but that requires sacrificing more privacy, right?
The argument is always these companies are making money off of my data. Why am I not making money off of my data?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean,
Like,
I
sure, you
guess
get a
that's where
service, but
the you know, because now there's like cryptos out there that are for like advertisees and advertisers, and you as a consumer like kind of gain coins or whatever the hell that from an advertiser showing you an ad, and then I can't remember the name of it, but there's a lot of that out there. It's not obviously not widely adopted, but
we're getting better at this because that's a perfect segue into the next topic, which was Facebook's releasing of their cryptocurrency today.
yeah. So do you want to intro that and maybe send me the article in the notes real quick? Because I actually I'll just Google it so you start talking about it.
Yeah, I'm just on the Guardian right now. It's Libra. Facebook launches cryptocurrency in bid to shake up global finance. Facebook has announced a digital currency called Libra that will allow its billions of users to make financial transactions across the globe in a move that could potentially shake up the world's banking system. In my defense, I didn't read the whole article before we before we talked about it, but yeah, I'm thinking that they're trying to hop on the kind of the next cryptocurrency wave because a lot of the money that's been pushed into the space has been institutional money over the last 6 months to a year. You had that huge crash at the beginning of 2018, and everything has been slowly recovering since then. But more and more institutional money is going into it, which means that there's, rising legitimacy in the space where everybody was, a year ago, everybody was making their stupid blockchain, Dogecoin, whatever, BitConnect,
What's
and there was like illegitimate
I forgot about that guy.
Yeah, there was
That was the
illegitimate
best shit.
projects that were making like they were getting evaluated at like hundreds of millions of dollars, and it was kind of the new way of doing an IPO. Instead of a IPO, you were doing an initial coin offering. So I'm thinking that as more institutional money gets pushed into the space, you're going to see, some legitimacy to it. They don't want to get left behind, right? So
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously, clearly, it's a space to be in, and they're going to do it because they have the means. It's interesting because Libra is actually a conglomerate of Visa, Uber, Andreessen Horowitz, which is a VC firm. Anders Andreessen, or whatever the hell his name is actually a very smart guy. He has a couple good books. Totally an aside, but yeah, it's intriguing to see because, well, I guess I wonder what the goal is of this. Like, just to have a native currency, like what benefit would the blockchain have here? I guess is the question, right?
for those of you listening, that's always Thomas's question: is what's the goal with this?
Well,
Last episode, same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I think that's something, if you want to have a filter to put on the world and go around, like,
Yeah.
what is the goal of this? Whether it's someone advertising to you, someone talking to you, uh, a company has some sort of ad, you read some piece of news, whatever it is, like, what is the end goal, right? Because generally speaking, someone wants to accomplish something when they do something. All right. Think
I would
about
say
that.
generally, yeah.
So, is there good intent? Is there malintent? Just what's the end goal, right? Like, just to have another cryptocurrency out there.
Do
I'm
some more
also trying
research
to
into it, I think.
talk and read about this. Yeah, I'd be curious to read more about this because obviously with the crashes of 2017, 2018, whatever, of of other crypto stuff, like perhaps they have learned from the mistakes of those organizations, whatever you want to say, those cryptos. The problem I would only see is this Facebook one getting mass adopted because it's literally just big company money, which is by definition the opposite of what
Yeah.
cryptocurrency is trying to accomplish, right? Which is
Yeah. The
decentralization.
decentralized. Yeah.
Yeah. So curious to see. Maybe it'll be a thing. Maybe it's just to hop on like kind of a buzzword and do something else, right? I was even looking. It's funny you mentioned this because we were discussing some stuff about Twitter. So I was looking up the Cash App, which is also owned by Twitter / Jack Dorsey and friends.
Yep.
And I've never really understood the Cash App. Granted, my understanding is it's very similar to e-transfer for us Canadians because I don't believe there's e-transfer in the States. I could be talking out of my ass, but I think it's a Canadian thing. So I believe that's kind of where the Cash App comes in. But when it comes to micro transaction fees, which Cash App does, which it appears Libra will be doing, I think you just kind of want to keep money natively within your umbrella, within your house, within your application or website, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's probably just trying to do that of, you see what I mean? Like keep that money in-house, right?
Yeah, I see an irony about it in that the people that actually like this sort of stuff, like the cryptocurrencies and stuff, a lot of them are like cypherpunkish in that they're like completely against big companies, against like, you know what I'm talking about?
It is like, it does beget that community for sure. Like for someone like you and I who are so on the outside, if you will, of that world and that we vaguely understand it. We've dealt a little bit with some crypto stuff in the past. We obviously think it's a thing of the future, but we don't have the breadth and depth of knowledge or high possession of coins or mining or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the further down the rabbit hole you go with that, it's very hardcore libertarians and kind of, like cyberpunk sort of types too, right? And there's that is what it is, right? Like that's not a bad thing per se, right? Especially if you're trying to get a decentralized network or whatever. But it seems kind of funny for really big companies, the biggest companies in the world, to jump into a space that would be, in theory, very unwelcoming to them. I don't know.
It's always the nerds who adopt this stuff first, and then you get everybody else, and then you get the hot girls that do their Instagram posting, and then then you have to find a new market because then it's all saturated, right?
Shit. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if maybe this Libra thing translates to the previous thing where now that Facebook's under all this pressure to be more transparent, maybe you as a Facebook user get some sort of benefit from clicking on ads, being shown ads, right?
I doubt it.
Unlikely, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah. I think that at the end of the day, you want some sort of network that you control all of your data, and that like, if you're willing to give it out, that you receive some sort of compensation for it. Because the currency of the modern world is not really money, it's time and time and information, and you give up and so much of it.
Even, right? Those are all kind of,
they all kind of ball
integrated.
into.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you give up a lot of your time on these platforms. Some people, the average person spends like 4 hours on their phone a day. So that's like over a day a week when you actually look at it, which is kind of
for sure.
fucked. So, I mean, you're giving up a day of your week, 52 days of your year to these platforms, and you're not getting anything in return.
Well, it depends how you look at it, I guess, right? Because you get that kind of sense of belonging, but it is maybe artificial in a way. I mean, it is a dopamine receptor you carry around with you at all times, right?
Yeah. As I look at my phone on the podcast.
Hey, put that down. Yeah,
No,
as
man.
carry it around with you all day. Or I mean, obviously we use it more for business in a couple aspects. So you are using the platform versus being used by it, right?
I try to be it, but yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of
I
the
still
day,
get used.
I thought about this a couple years ago. So what I did, I kind of went off on how do I put this? I was just really taking it easy one weekend and like stayed home, didn't really want to go out, wanted to take a bit of a break. This was a few years ago. And then I also didn't really spend a lot of time looking at my phone. Like I was just kind of reading, watching some movies, whatever, like trying to disconnect as much as possible. And then, it was a Saturday night. So I did eventually look through my Snapchats and saw, all the outings and like people showing that you're out, showing that you're at the bar. And it creates such a weird false sense of belonging, I say, because objectively, you might only be at the bar having drinks or hanging out with or having dinner with like 2 or 3 people, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that. But then all of a sudden, when me and 10 other people are all kind of Snapchatting each other and they're all with 2 or 3 other people, whether it's via the story or directly, etc. Now all of a sudden there's 20 to 30 of us hanging out. And then it feels like you're kind of doing more than you are. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, it's like almost like scaling to a broader audience that's not even there in the room with you.
Yeah, exactly. Like scaling, hanging out. But then it's also so like artificial at the same time.
Which can be used to your benefit, of course. But I also see it as the average person doesn't use it to their benefit. They just use it to be like, look at me. I'm getting drunk on Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday, sometimes Thursday. Like, I don't know. I see the same thing as you. And it's kind of like.
And, I'm not just going to bash it and be holier than thou.
No,
right?
no.
But, you kind of. I don't know. It's just interesting, and for some reason, it really clicked in that moment to me to think about that, and kind of readjusted. And I'm thankful to be in this space, if you will, because I try to be cognizant of what social media does to you, right?
Right.
And I think we as a society are getting better and understanding that the Instagram feed is the curated feed. You are only seeing the happy days. And even to go to the old, I think it's a Marcus Aurelius quote where it's, do not compare yourself to the man next to you, for you have not paid the price that he has. Right.
Yeah.
And, I found for me in the past getting really, down in the dumps, especially because in the real estate world, there's a lot of braggadocio on social media, especially when it comes to only showing the upside of things and a little bit of Instagram flexing. And I think we've talked about this before, right? But like, I allowed that to kind of negatively influence me in a way when I'm like, okay, well, like, sure, that person had a great month, but maybe they just had 4 terrible ones, right? You don't know how much time they've put into it. How much time did I put in this past week compared to them? Maybe a lot less, right? So anyways, I don't know. I would say just try and be aware of how that shit affects you, right? And it's good to unplug. I actually, fuck, this is funny. So I had a funny story shouldn't need to be introed as this story is so funny.
That's like saying the punchline before the joke.
Yeah, exactly. But a friend of mine was telling me that him and a few of his buddies recently, they started like going out and just leaving their phone at home, right? Like when they go out to the bar or whatever, which is like, logistic, like it's natural to kind of have some logistical, like, oh shit, but what if I need a cab? Like, whatever, just go outside the bar and plug one down. It's not that hard. So, but I mean, if you have your wallet, you can make it happen. And anyways, point being, they leave it at home, they go out, they go to the bar, whatever. And then he's like, like makes you hang out with people, right? And, maybe you lose your friend, but you can't fill the space of like, if you and I go out together and you start kind of chatting with someone, I can't really like fill time by glancing in my pocket at my phone. I'm like, well, fuck, now I need to do something, right? So I thought that was really interesting.
New. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then so one idea I've been toying with, I want to do like a uh and anyways, I want to do like a no phone party or something like that, right? And whether this is something personally I do, and we can discuss more off air, because I'm not gonna put my address out there on the internet too publicly, but or somehow if we can arrange it somewhere, but do like a no phone party, like either you leave it at home or you have to like check it, like similar to there's certain like comedy shows you have to do that and shit. Like apparently, like when Kevin Hart was in town, there's like these phone bag things that you have to use.
Okay. I've heard of
I don't
like
know.
you go
It
out
was
for
sort of
dinner.
something
Yeah.
I've been playing with in my mind and how you'd go about it. And I think it would be really fun to, like if you got everyone on board, right? So
I've seen where you go out for dinner and you stack your
you
phones
put
on the table, and whoever picks up their phone first pays the bill or whatever.
Yeah. You know, I've actually done that once or twice with people, not anytime recently. And yeah, it's usually pretty fun. So I don't know. I like it.
You actually talk to people.
Yeah. Crazy idea.
I mean,
Yeah.
you and I are pretty social when it comes to that. I don't
I would say so.
generally spend a lot of time on my phone. There has been days where I look at my, you know how iPhone now has the
Yeah, you're
time on your phone. You're like,
yeah,
oh shit.
what is this? Screen time? Is that what it's called? What do we got?
Yeah.
Here? Oh,
Yeah,
mine's
screen
at mine's actually not bad today, but yeah, sometimes you look at it and it's like 6 hours.
What's yours at?
Mine's at an hour and 28 minutes as of right now.
Oh fuck.
Where are you at?
2 hours, 21 minutes.
Oh shit. Granted, for the record though, I was so I went to or I've spent more time on my computer today than on my phone. So you know, still was looking at social networks there.
Yeah, I mean, it gets pretty bad when you're on your computer, on your phone, potentially watching television,
browsing Facebook on your computer. Like, hang on, let me just check Facebook on my phone quick.
Because it's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that, though, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. Well, you know, I like to think because there's a stat out there that the average white collar worker does 2 to 3 hours of work a day, which is kind of crazy, but it seems pretty true when you think of all the distractions and, you know, if you factor in like having to do stupid meetings, social media stuff, having to, and then, you know, walking to the water cooler and then just general horsing around, right? Like it makes sense that it's only a couple hours a day, right? So, you know, as a self-employed person, you kind of have to be disciplined to like not do that. Like you don't have a boss who's going to come around that corner and be like, hey, what are you doing?
There is a lot of self-discipline involved.
Yeah, for sure. And then I always figure like, hey, if you do 4 to 6 hours of real work in a day, that doesn't sound like a tall order. And like you are in theory twice as productive as everyone else, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like that.
I have a bit of a theory that we're kind of going back to the small communities. Like I saw it a lot in Montreal where you're going to like the neighborhood restaurant. You're not going to the chain restaurant. You kind of like know the people, you're building relationships around it. I have faith that I think we're going back to like the smaller community because as a human being, I don't think you can fathom 5,000 fucking friends on Facebook. Like how many of those people do you actually really know?
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, no, I would say that's a bit of a trend of people kind of getting more into like the local trendy shops and stuff.
Maybe we're just hipsters.
Yeah, maybe this has always been there and now we've just discovered said community. So
I've been called a hippie before, so that's a tidbit of information that's like
in what way?
I don't know. Like I think that there's aspects about me that is a little bit hippie-ish in that I'm not like I like the natural stuff. Like I don't like, you know, putting bad stuff into your body or your mind or whatever. I mean, fuck, I was doing yoga for like 3 months straight there at one point.
Were you? I know. Look at this fucking guy. Yoga, long ass beard.
Straight hippie.
Just a vagabond, moving to different cities.
Just gonna grow my hair out.
Address. Hasn't showered in weeks.
2 times a day. God damn it. No. Yeah, but there's something to be said about the like smaller community actually knowing people, actually like having interactions that are valuable to you and the other person. I don't know. There's something to it.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, maybe that is a thing in the future. I guess we'll find out. It well, I mean, people kind of naturally work better in groups of like 20 to 50. Like that is a real number, right? We're actually very communal creatures at the neighborhood communal level. Communal creatures at the communal level. But
well, I think that even in that podcast that you sent me, the Naval podcast with Joe Rogan, he's even talking about like, I don't like my company to get to 1,000 people. I like to have a company of like a company of 10 is going to feel more like a family than a company of obviously 1,000 people or whatever, getting to, so having a tight knit community allows you to maneuver quickly, allows people to have an emotional connection to each other. So maybe that's why we see so much turnover in the millennial population, and that everybody's working for these big ass companies. They feel no tie whatsoever to the company. And 5 weeks later, they're like, peace, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so real quick to bring it up to speed. So Naval Ravikant is the person we're talking about. He was on Joe Rogan relatively recently. I'll put the episode in the show notes.
Like a month ago, I think.
Yeah, I want to say, I think I have the show number right in front of me here, if you give me 2 seconds. But it's episode 1309, which was on June 4th. So a couple
We're
weeks.
still looking for a producer to replace Adam.
Yeah, exactly. Unpaid internship ad hitting LinkedIn next week. But we anyways, he's the guy who founded Angel List, and I think he did some other crap. But yeah, really interesting guy. But yeah, he has that's by far the best episode of that show I've ever listened to. And he's a very interesting guy where, obviously he's a very successful like venture capitalist type. He has some, let's call it capitalistic views, but I think he has a very reasonable view of the world and is like kind of laissez-faire in a lot of ways, which I think would maybe describe myself and my hippie co-host Josh as well. And yeah, it was just, there were so many like profound moments where I felt like he articulated things so well, that, not to like try and call myself smart, but things that I had sort of thought before, but then him really putting his finger on it, if that makes any sense, or making you kind of rethink or relook at certain things. But yeah, his kind of point was, the conglomeration of companies and stuff, like people don't want that. It's normal not to want that. I think that's why, millennials in the workplace are arguably fairly dissatisfied. And we kind of see this like entrepreneurship culture thing going on. Right. And, I even said a couple of years ago, right, that I kind of foresee a bit of a shift towards kind of like a sort of self-employed gig economy becoming more of a thing. Right. And Naval Ravikant here also talked about that in a really interesting way and how it'll change our lives. And he also talks about how AI is something maybe you shouldn't be totally afraid of. It could be something that's very beneficial to our lives.
I had similar viewpoints as him with regard to the AI thing, and I thought he touched on it exceptionally well, in that there's a lot of hype in that space, and it's kind of like the hype men are getting the spotlight, where he's kind of like very realistic about it. And he's like, 100 years from now, you're still not probably going to have a general AI. And that was pretty interesting for me to see somebody that's so involved in that world say something.
Yeah. Hey, it is, because I think the people talking the most about it are the least informed, right? Including you and I, right? Like, I don't know any details about that stuff, but my understanding is, well, one thing I heard quite a few years ago where it's like, hey, like maybe calm down about the rise of the machines, because at the end of the day, like currently technology is still ones and zeros at the end of the day. It's binary code. It is either on or off is generally what binary code is, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, there's our binary code 101.
That is a sound clip for the
Yeah.
ages.
Clip it.
No,
Clip it.
but
So much.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like it's data inputs and making inferences on statistics at this point. And computers have always been better than us at that. They're just getting even better now. So it's kind of,
and perhaps a smart, like, perhaps we'll be able to replicate kind of the human neurons and cortex and stuff down the road, but we currently have not been able to, right? And maybe when that happens, maybe it'll be Terminator and we'll all be screwed. But you and I will probably be long dead by then. So what the hell do I care? So, but AI is basically just pattern recognition, right? So creating efficiencies in everyone's lives, and he had a really interesting take on it, just where, like, to a point, yeah, we're worried AI is going to automate so many jobs and put people out of work. But number one, and I've always said this, is it creates an arise to tons of new jobs that we can't fathom because they don't exist yet. But part of that too is when your basic needs are met, you can AI and automate a lot of things. Like, you won't have to do a bunch of dumb, annoying, repetitive, menial stuff, right? Like, even to go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say, what's left is the creative work. And that's what he really talks about on that podcast. And that's like a really good thing, in that people don't want to be doing the digging holes. Yeah, exactly. They want to be doing creative work. They want to be creating things and changing how people interact and how they see the world. And I think that that's really a good thing when you come down to it. His take on universal basic income, though, was actually that he is probably the biggest figure that I've seen that is completely against it. And I think he calls it on the episode a non-solution for a non-problem.
Yeah, he did say that. That was actually a really good bite from that episode, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, without straying too much into political territory, I guess for UBI, it's essentially raising zero, right? So it objectively makes no sense. And, in theory, assuming he is correct about AI and universal income, they would kind of cancel out, in that there would not be the need for a universal basic income, because artificial intelligence would provide you so many of your basic needs that you could probably just go about your day and not make any money and still live. to exaggerating, but to some form of that, right?
It goes back to, the poorest of the poor in our world today lives better than pretty much royalty did 200 or 300 years ago. So there's been a lot of wealth creation between, the Industrial Revolution and today. So it's very interesting to see that he actually believes that everybody can get to a place of being rich. And that's completely counterintuitive for, I would say, a lot of people these days. So go listen to that podcast.
Yeah. I think we'll leave it at that. I would check it out for yourself, even if you're not a Joe Rogan fan. It's one of the ones that, if you look at it from an open mind, come at it with an open mind, it could be, I would say, life-changing, just to, throw around small words. It's one of those ones where, because a lot of people don't, if you're not a podcast person or whatever, maybe you don't listen to Joe Rogan, but him, Naval Ravikant, and then also Matt Walker, who's the sleep doctor. Those are the ones that I kind of harp on for, even if you're someone who's never listened to a show before, go check it out. Right. So.
Yeah. He should start paying us. He's making $100 million a year on his podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
We're sending at least 5 people his way. So.
Sorry, I was fixing my headphones. I missed that last one.
I was just going to say, we're sending at least 5 people his way, so he should pay us for sure.
Yeah. Shout out to those 5 people. You know who you are.
Mom, Dad.
Yeah. Grandma.
My dog.
My dog.
I don't have a dog.
Just start taking people's phones at the bar and subscribing them to our show. What the hell is this?
Holy shit, we're going out this weekend doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, you can catch me and Josh on White Ave every Friday and Saturday night. We'll be sober, just stealing your phones and giving them back.
Follow us on Instagram, follow us on
Yeah,
YouTube.
I have shout out to a friend of mine who we have a friend who is like a musician, and then trying to download their music onto everyone's phones. We're like, all right, how do we do this?
Pull the U2 from like 5 years ago or whatever.
I was about to say, I wonder if Apple takes applications to do the U2. I mean, granted, everyone, speaking of privacy invasions, everyone lost their minds about that. And it's like, man, you have no idea what they can put in or take out of your phone. Like if you're mad about a U2 song, right? Like,
I think they were mad it was a shitty album. I think they were less mad about it being U2. Like, I mean, I like U2, but the fucking album was terrible. So,
oh god,
I was just gonna come out and say it.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. That was different. That was a few years ago now. Now that I think about it, hey.
Yeah, fuck. We were having this conversation the other day, and it was like 18 feels like it was like yesterday, man.
Yeah.
Like I can still remember going to first year university, and like I don't know what it is. Maybe I killed too many brain cells drinking or what it was, but that feels like yesterday to me.
Yeah. Wow. 2014. That
Jesus Christ, that was 5 years ago already.
Yeah.
Half a decade.
Don't say that.
Jesus.
Yeah. Hey. I think, I mean, I guess the lesson there is time does fly, right? Like make it count. Start doing something now, even if it sucks, even if you're just starting, right? Like, to go in a typical long and hard tangent here, but one thing I heard quite a few years ago, some wise words from someone we follow online who's brought us a lot of value, but he had a friend who was like 35 and was he had never gone to university, wanted to get his degree, right? And he's like, but shit, man, like I'm 35, like it's going to take a long time. I'm old. Like, what do I do? And, the objective truth is, he told him, was in 4 years, which is how long it takes to get a degree, is in 4 years, you're going to be 39, no matter what. You can be 39 with a degree or 39 without a degree. That's the choice is yours, right? Time and tide wait for no man. So,
yeah. Shit, man. We're going deep on this one. I think everybody starts. Like, you have to realize that everybody started somewhere. And most people started at complete zero. And I mean, it's very easy to get discouraged when you're starting something. But I mean, you just do it on a weekly basis. Record a podcast.
Did you hear that?
No, what was that?
Nothing. Never mind.
That was me going deep, and you're
sorry, I
in the background.
Sorry, we were on a roll and I fucked that up. I had like a squeeze water bottle and just started like making noise. I'm like, oh shit, I hope the mic's not picking this up.
So when we were in Montreal, we bought those like 4-liter bottles of water. Fuck.
Oh, like the milk jugs of water?
Yeah, but like bigger. I think they're actually 5-liter water bottles. Anyway, there's one day we emptied one and we had accidentally like squished it. So about 10 minutes later, we hear this fucking gunshot. Just the thing just had like kind of got back to its regular shape. But holy shit, man, I almost shit my pants. It was the fucking scariest thing ever. Was
this by coincidence when you were staying in the shitty neighborhood as well?
Yeah, actually it would have been our first place. So our very first place.
That's funny.
Yeah, fuck.
Did you totally lose your train of thought? Did I screw you up there? You were saying some nice stuff about...
No, I was just saying that everybody started at some place, and most people started in a similar position to you. So if you want to do something, just start. That's pretty much the biggest secret to any of this stuff. Is I've had people talk to me about, how did you start a clothing brand? How did you start in real estate? how did you start X, Y, or Z? It comes down to just sitting down, starting, maybe doing a little bit of research first. But even then, you and I are very much anti-research, just do it type people. And that's really the secret, is getting going. Because inertia is the most painful thing ever. It makes you sit in one position and you're going nowhere. And when you start getting a little bit momentum, you start seeing opportunities. The same thing with this podcast. Like, we're shifting focus a little bit, but that's because we started. You can't shift focus if you don't start something.
That's very good. Pause for dramatic effect. Actually, going back to just to have more of a hard on for this Neville Ravikant episode of Joe Rogan's here, but he has a good analogy where he talks about, I'm going to butcher this, so go listen to it so you hear the original, but climbing a mountain, right? Like, and in life, like, most people kind of climb a mountain halfway and then just sort of keep climbing, kind of stop halfway up, and that's all they do, right? Like, you know, it would suck to go all the way back down and climb the next mountain over, because maybe you can reach the top of that one, right? Because you have to come down and you have to start from the bottom, right? But the ability to actually like go forward and just start doing something, right? So, and yeah, it's actually very refreshing to know once you internalize that everyone started, like Josh said, like everyone starts at square one, everyone starts at day zero. So when you see, you know, the biggest agent in your market bragging about selling 200 homes a year, and they're killing you on a listing presentation or whatever and stuff, like, just remember they started at zero at 1.2, right? So
yeah.
Also, I want to say episode 7 was Just Do It of Long and Hard. So go back and listen.
And start plugging ourselves.
Yeah.
We've done enough episodes now. We can start plugging ourselves. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, shit, man. Like, even, okay, so this was like one random idea I texted Josh like 4 months ago, and now we're actually doing it. Now we have a bit of a backlog of content. Now we're sort of know how to do this and produce it and put it out there, right? And again, we're still learning. We're going to the next level, right? Always pushing, but
yeah, I mean, in person next. Figure out how to do the video element.
Yeah.
Figure out how to get fucking Bill Gates on the podcast. You know?
Yeah, exactly. One foot in front of the other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Video. I'd be excited to get the video part. I think that would be really fun. Going back to the start of this episode, we were looking at a space at Roundhouse at MacEwan. So really cool thing MacEwan University is doing. They have an actual co-working space within MacEwan, which I thought was really interesting. Pretty forward thinking, I guess, in MacEwan, which they're sort of known to be. It's actually extremely reasonable priced. So shout out Roundhouse. Also not an ad, but you know, give us a discount code anyways.
As alumni, it was actually pretty cool to see that new building and stuff that they've done since we've been there. So you were having this conversation, and that building was just a fucking parking lot when we were there. So
it's a shitty dirt parking lot, gravel lot, so like no lines. So in winter, it was a goddamn nightmare to park because everyone took up 2.5 stalls, right?
You'd have to walk 5 blocks.
Yeah, you'd have to walk 5 blocks if you were business students like us. You were obviously, you know, like a 4 or 5 block walk from the parking lot. Granted, you know, hey, I mean, end of the day, MacEwan, like comparatively to U of A, it was a little better. Like you didn't have to walk quite as far. Also, you had the option to walk inside the whole way, which, you know, can't hate that too much.
At least you could walk, you know. Take the perspective.
Yeah, mindset shift. You know what? And we're gonna save the details of this for another day. But you know, the 5-gallon water jug thing made me think of your injury and when you were in the hospital. And so for those who don't know, Josh had a fairly severe injury. He will tell you about it in an upcoming episode of the Long and Hard podcast. But he was on very, very heavy medications when he was first in the hospital because he had just done the the break, the fracture, whatever you want to say. And at the time we were all like super into bodybuilding and fitness or whatever. So, drinking like 9 liters of water a day and shit. So when they tried to give Josh like morphine and stuff, his body wouldn't react to like large amounts because he had so much water. His system would just clean it through, like straight in and out.
They actually thought I was a drug addict because I wasn't reacting to it. And it was because I was drinking like 5 liters of water a day, even while I was in the hospital.
Yeah. And they go to his parents and they're like, hey, is your son like a meth head? Like his body doesn't respond to any of the pain drugs.
I've totally forgot about that.
That's honestly, man, like I'm not to talk about you while you're not around too much, but I've told that story to a lot of people because I think it's so fucking funny. Yeah. And we can obviously laugh about it now too, right? But it's just such a dumb little thing, right?
I was like, like my phone backup from like when that happened. And there was one fucking group chat I was in with, like, I think it was two of my buddies. And I had just like taken the like morphine hit, and the text that I sent them made perfect sense to me. But in retrospect, when I was looking at it, it was literal gibberish. Like it was like, it started with his name and then all of a sudden just went completely nowhere.
Out
it
the
was
window.
I'll see if I can post that on our fucking.
Hopefully you have some of those. That'd be really great for if and when we do tell this story, right? Because I mean, shit. Anyways, it's now you can look back at it, but I actually remember that because it would go from Josh would be texting me and it would be like normal messages. Sometimes it would be like a few typos, right? Sometimes it would be like texting a heavily intoxicated person because it was like typos, but you could understand what they're saying. And then it just went nonsense, right? Like there was like spacing and punctuation. So you could tell he was trying to make some sort of sense, but it just would not translate. It was, that was so classic. Also, in his defense, I don't believe the keyboard like corrective type was quite as far along as it is now, right? Like
no, this was back in the I think this was an iPhone 5 is what I had back when that happened. So
it's like that one scene in South Park where they're doing the like cat piss, and then Kenny and Stan's dad are like, they think they're in this like alternate universe from that heavy metal movie and like having this epic final battle, and they're just fighting in the sandbox and it cuts to them like not tripping.
Oh man. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend doing those painkillers, but I mean, circumstances called for it, and it is what it is, but yeah. On that note, let's call it for this week. I am doing actually a solo podcast. Let's talk about this. Yeah, it's called Invictus. So I'm actually talking about because a lot of people have talked to me about, like, asked me about my injury and stuff. So I'm going to come out and do the first episode of Invictus, kind of talking about the stuff that I went through. And
what is Invictus, Mr. Blaze?
Invictus is actually a poem. And
I meant like, what is the podcast? But I guess you can tell that too.
I'll introduce it in the podcast. But yeah, it's a solo podcast I'm doing, just talking to people that have been through similar circumstances, and talking about like overcoming bad shit that's happened to you. So it'll be a pretty interesting one. I look forward to it. And that was a good segue from talking about some funny stories.
Exactly. No, that's interesting. I think that'd be some good stuff. And then we'll probably do your story on this podcast, and then kind of more just recanting it, but then also maybe how it applies to, we don't want to totally ditch the mindset sort of stuff, because I think that's important, kind of the lessons taken away from that. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that. Yeah.
Mindset's everything, man. So
awesome. Okay, well, I think that is it for this week. This was, I don't know, this is a fun one. I'm liking our little format change versus just ranting, though we do manage to do that, rest assured.
Oh, no doubt. It wouldn't be the Thomas and Josh show if we weren't fucking ranting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As always, follow us on SoundCloud, anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. You can follow
YouTube,
us on Facebook.
Facebook, get the video
YouTube, we're
version of
live.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then at Long and Hard Podcast on most social media networks. Yeah, I don't know. We want to be found. We're easy to be found. Like and subscribe. It means a lot to us. And yeah, we'll keep you guys posted with what's going on. We got some exciting stuff coming up this summer.
We will talk to you next week.
Deuces.
Peace.